Curious people. Welcome to another edition of Curious People Wanted, a program series by the Barnum Museum in Bridgeport, Connecticut. My name is Adrienne Saint-Pierre, and I'm the curator here at the Barnum Museum, so I'm the lucky person who gets to share the stories of our wonderful artifacts with you. So today we're going to look at some footwear that belonged to Lavinia Warren, otherwise known as Mrs. General Tom Thumb. If you saw one of our earlier episodes, you might remember seeing General Tom Thumb's boots. They're wonderful, tiny little boots, about 6 inches tall. And we find they are an artifact that our visitors particularly enjoy seeing. It gives them a really good sense of how small Tom Thumb was. Well, let's give equal time to the ladies now. So we're going to look at what Lavinia wore. I wanted to start with this pair of silk stockings. These are a delicate pink color. They're really beautiful. The spots on them, I think, are probably from something that happened while they were stored. I have a feeling these were never worn. The foot just doesn't even look as if it was ever used. So, of course, the size is a clue that they belong to Lavinia. These are about, 38 centimeters from the point of the heel to the top here. That would be 13 and a half inches. Got that, I think. And this is 6 inches from the back of the heel to the widest part of the calf, and that is about 15 centimeters. So obviously the size tells us that a little person wore these stockings. But there's another clue here. It's a little harder to see. Knitted in near the top are the initials LWS. Okay, so Lavinia Warren, we got that, and then her married name was Stratton because General Tom Thumb was a stage name and his real name was Charles Stratton. So she was Lavinia Warren Stratton. That also helps us to date these stockings. They married in 1863, so these must date to 1863 or later. I have a feeling these might have been part of Lavinia's trousseau. Because they are very special and elegant. Details like the embroidered clocks here on the stockings make them a little above ordinary. So these are lovely. We've had these in the collection for a while. But what we just recently got was a single shoe, a slipper shoe that belonged to Lavinia. And so I'm delighted because now we can see the relationship of the foot length here on the stocking to the size of her shoe. People often ask us, well, how does a museum get all this stuff? And generally it's donated by people or a museum purchases it. But on occasion, there's a different situation, and that is how we got this particular shoe. It was transferred to us by another museum. And sometimes museums end up with things in their collection that really don't pertain to the focus of what they talk about or teach or exhibit. And in this case, the museum thought, well, this shoe doesn't really belong in our collection. It would be better at the Barnum Museum. So it was very, very generous of them that they did transfer this little shoe to us with its history of ownership. That's called provenance. Now, although it's not normal practice today to put stick labels right on artifacts. That is often what happened in the past. And so this tells us a little bit of the history, the woman to whom this shoe was given, who then later gave it to the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. Lavinia was a member of the DAR, so they thought it was fitting to give it to the Massachusetts, or one of the Massachusetts chapters. They later on gave it to another museum in Massachusetts, and now, just recently, we've received it. So we're thrilled to have it. It's probably seen better days. It was probably sort of an ivory cream color to begin with. The surface is now kind of cracked. Perhaps it was sitting in the sun or something that caused that damage, but still, it's a lovely artifact for us to have, and especially in conjunction with the silk stockings. So let me tell you a little bit, the length here. This is about 5 inches, and about the width of the shoe is about 1.5 inches at the widest point. So you can see how truly miniature her foot was. Now, in our collection, we have what I sometimes call sibling artifacts, and this is another example of, or one of a few examples of that type of combination. So we had already in our collection this dainty little satin slipper, and this belonged to Lavinia's sister. Her real name was Hulda, but she went by the nickname Minnie, M-I-N-N-I-E. Lavinia was one of 8 children. 6 of them grew to a normal height, but both Lavinia and her younger sister had a type of proportionate dwarfism, which meant they stopped growing when they were about a year old. Minnie was even smaller than Lavinia. She was 7 years younger, but she was also smaller. And when Lavinia got married to Charles Stratton in 1863, her sister Minnie was her bridesmaid. Possibly this was a satin slipper she wore as the bridesmaid. We don't really have any history of it. It would be great if we could have conservation work on it, would kind of relax this bow across the front, and you could see that there's a nice little piece of lace underneath there. I also want to point out that sometimes people, if they have, antique shoes, like they stuff them, they pack them tight with tissue, that can be a little bit of a problem. Sometimes tissue hardens over the years, and sometimes the inside of the shoe is very delicate. So I just want to point out that there's the tiniest thread, so to speak, of elastic still left inside this shoe that would have gone across Minnie's foot to hold the slipper in place. And you can see how easy it would be if, in the process of putting tissue in or taking it out again, that would just get ripped off. So if you have any antique shoes like that, just be very mindful. Sad to say, Minnie passed away when she was a young woman of 29 years old. That was in 1878. And Lavinia was, of course, bereft with the loss of her beloved sister. And she kept a number of her clothing items. So these got passed down in the family and eventually came to the Barnum Museum. So that's how we got Minnie's satin slipper and a few other items that she wore. I'd like to show you the soles of these 2 little slippers. First of all, so you can see the size difference, but also how really delicate and thin the leather soles are. Now, of course, these weren't meant to be worn outside on the streets. These were indoor slippers, and there are many that have survived to be in museum collections because often they were, best dress or wedding slippers, and so they were saved. So they're very delicate. We're lucky to have them, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing these tiny treasures. We have many more to share with you in future episodes, and I thank you for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.